Okay, let's start with the workshop. So I will make an introduction, some kind of summary or wrap up out of the presentation we had yesterday morning, so the industry input. We had similar presentations in a smaller audience in September in Brussels in the Steam Community Product Room, and therefore it is important to get these inputs. So we had a company out of logistics, we had a plant manufacturer, so elevator Schindler, and we had industrial manufacturer, Stora Enso in the wood production, and they gave us input. So what's their view on data and on product information. So who is here supporting me? So that's Radboud Baayen from Keten Standard from the Netherlands. Hello. He is also in the steering committee of the product room and is here today and running together in this workshop. Then we have myself. So I'm the only chair of the product room, working for the Swiss Research Center for Rationalization in Building and Civil Engineering in Switzerland. So that's the national standardization and specification body in Switzerland. That will also proceed you through the workshop. So that's the agenda. We have 2 workshops today. So this session now, 1.5 hours, and then after the break, the second workshop. So that is important because it's really all about repositioning, relaunching of the product room. So what is it all about? What do you expect from product room? What do we want to deliver, or what do we have to deliver? So we will start with a short introduction summary of these product room sessions yesterday and today. Then we do a brown boxing session, so that we will really be a brainstorming, a creative session together here. So we'll be interested in, especially with the online participants. And then also the question, what could be our dream? So what do you want to achieve, or what do you expect from the product room in a few years? Workshop 2 is then more or less a wrap-up of the workshop 1. So people that will stay shall stay. So we plan to dig deeper in workshop 2. But on the other hand, if somebody that is not in here now and steps into workshop 2, that will be not a problem. There we would then, the outcome of workshop 1 put into a timeline, into a schedule. So what is then also really a concrete roadmap that you expect from the product room and what deliverables you would expect. So that's a little bit what we plan. So one presentation we did unfortunately not have here in Montreal was this presentation from Stora Enso. Stora Enso, that is this industrial manufacturer in wood production. But we had him in our workshop in steering committee. And a little bit the outcome or a condensation out of his presentation was that if he talks about open BIM, he talks about open API. I think that is something that comes up now more and more in different rooms, in different sessions and topics, that it is about really providing data, access to data, and we need to talk about open APIs. What he talks about is really also this real-time and bidirectional data provisioning, and it's explicitly, and that's the reason he talks about APIs. It is not export-import like we do mostly with IFC. That is not a surprise because IFC is a data exchange format, so you export and you import. Here it's really his requirement or his request that we should have real-time and bidirectional data provisioning. Then another very important topic he raised was that it is also about third-party data. That's underneath here. Yeah. So third-party data sources, so that he uses various databases for his industrial production. So it's not only something from a BIM model or only something from a planner or from an architect. So he has also other data sources that he has to access and he has to use. Then what he says also is that if he talks about data, then it's about a source for calculation. So data is not only for information, it's also something that you need for processing, do calculations, and to get a result, and perhaps you have to provision this data again later on. Then he talks about a system approach, so it's not only about products and material. Okay, going back to the presentation, so the system approach from Soren, so it's not only about products and materials, so that you have different products, material, and also immaterial entities that you combine in a system, and you should also be able to manage this system. So that was a requirement from his side. Then he talked about use cases, two very important use cases for him. So one part is how to transfer sustainability specifications to the manufacturer. That is also a topic that we care about. So how do you specify sustainability? It's not that easy because it's not black and white. It's quite often it's a prioritization between different, also concurrent concepts. And another use case that is very important for him is how to transfer manufacturer element specifications to the manufacturer. Here, for example, in the wood industry, it's the grain direction, so it's also new for him, but it is important in design, so how the grain direction is, and he has to know in manufacturing what the specification is, and he needs this data. Then third-party data sources we already discussed, and then the last point from his side was that he needs data from built assets, so he really asks for an information system, so that the data has to stay accessible, and also, again, in provisioning, not in file exchange. There was also an important part of his input. He said, well, if I provide data with an export with an IFC, then it's lost. For him, it's away. It's gone. He doesn't have access to it anymore. So it's really like you give a present, and what the other side does with the present, you don't know. And if you change something on your side, you eventually you do not know that somebody else should get another data export. So that was a little bit an introduction from Stora Enso. Then we had logistics, SiteLog, that made also an industry input. Was interesting also, SiteLog is talking about open API, so OpenBIM is open API, because they are also dependent from real-time bidirectional data provisioning. Also here, interesting, it's not export, import, it is about accessing data and providing data in real time. Then he needs information about building progress. So that is to have the ability to validate logistics requirements. So these were the aspects, for example, that there is a truck on the construction site with products on it. They load it off. It was not for this construction site, and he didn't know. And the effect is that nobody in construction site needs these products, and 3 months later it's waste. Because it doesn't go back, nobody can use it. On the construction site where they miss these products, they order it new because it's missing, and there is a hell of a lot of loss also in money and commercial loss. So that is what he says. It would help if at least we knew that this truck, or what is the truck is providing to the construction site, is really for this site. And then, of course, the best would also be, is it the right time for these products, or is it too early? And is all the material the right time? And where do you need it in the construction site? In which floor? On what side? And so on and so forth. Because otherwise, he's a little bit lost in logistics. Then, of course, he needs material and product information. That's then also to validate the processes in logistics, where he mentioned that he has the issue that he gets products loaded off, and he has no idea what it is at the end of the day, and he even does not know who ordered it. There again, it would be helpful in validating the processes to get this information. Then also he talks about a system approach, because he handles bricks and plasterboards, not walls. That's also important. So because, well, it can happen in prefabrication systems that really get a part of a wall, but usually we get bricks and plasterboards and stuff like this. So also he has a system approach. Then he has the georeferencing. that was new and interesting from logistics, so that he should, or it would help him if the location would be delivered for materials and products. So where is it needed exactly? And that is now more than the construction site. So it's the floor, it's perhaps the room, whatever. So we had examples that we can have pallets of material on floor 3 that was for the whole building, and in floor 5 nobody is aware anymore that in floor 3 are still pallets with material they could use, and then they order it there because they think it's not there. Then he talks also about use cases. No, sorry, that's a copy-paste issue from the former slide, so forget about this, it was not for logistics. But he's also talking about third-party data sources, so that he also uses various content databases to support his processes. What is interesting for both of them, and also then the Schindler part comes afterward, so you open up your mind. So it's much more than the design, it's much more than a model, it's much more than contractors and construction. It is a lot of more process and information sources around it. Okay, I'd like to go further on. So we had also Schindler. Schindler is also interested because they build plants in a building. Also Schindler is talking about OpenBIM is Open API. They go too further because they say we also have online operational data that they use, so that they get data from their plants, and they would like to use them to optimize their systems again, and their planning and the configuration and so on, so that they are looking or asking for a framework for something like this. They also have a system approach. Well, that is reasonable, of course, if they build whole plants. And an elevator is probably as complex as a building. So it's a closed system, and an elevator has an own life cycle, and this is different from the life cycle of the building. So you exchange an elevator probably 2 or 3 times during the life cycle of building, and you maintain it, and you renew it, and so on and so forth. So that is something that they mentioned, and I think that's probably not the only one with elevators. If you have heating system, cooling system, something like the same issue. They talk also about the process approach, so that there is that you have a building and a plant life cycle, and the building and the plant have also all the value chains, and you should consider all surrounding stakeholders to really get some efficiency and productivity improvement in the whole process. And then what they mentioned also that they are looking for a generic approach, even if it's a large manufacturer. But they say it helps the industry more if it's a generic approach and a Schindler approach, because it's also I would expect the conclusion they are never alone. So therefore, it doesn't help to have a Schindler solution. And also Schindler is talking about third-party data sources, so they're also using their databases. So that's a little bit the input from the industry, and that leads a little bit in the direction of what we already prepared. So what could it be about? What the product group should deliver? So you see, it's far larger than modeling, than design, than planning, or construction. So it's logistics, it's e-commerce, it's maintenance, it's the whole engineering processes, it's the whole life cycle of products or even plants within the building. So that's what we would like to work now together with you in the workshop, to bring together what your ideas are, what a product group could, should, must deliver to bring the process forward and generate value in the overall building construction industry. I guess we can go one slide further on. Yeah. So that's where we want to start. So we love 2026, so it's 5 years time. Yes, approximately. And the first session we would like to do with you, so in the room it's easy. So we have a post-it here, we have some pens here, we have a flip chart here. So really to collect your ideas. So in a perfect world, so if we say we are in 2026, So what should be done? What should be solved by the product room? What we could deliver to the industry? So really dream about it and go into a perfect world. Then for the online participants, can you switch to the chat, please? So we have Randolph. We have Randolph. Huh? So is it possible that you only have Randolph online? So if you have anybody else, please send a short hello. So if you have inputs to these questions, please write it in the chat. Then we put it on a post-it and put it on the wall. So that's the way we have to work. We thought about working with Miro, and we decided not to do because we had enough issues with technology. And one problem can be that everybody also in the room should have that computer in front. So it looks like we really have only Randolph. So happy to have you here. So put your notes and comments into the chat, and we start here then really
from scratch.
From scratch and with paper.
Yeah. So just a little introduction. I've done a workshop like this a couple of times to establish also roadmaps for steering committees we do at Ketenstandard. By the way, my name is Baayen, for the ones that don't know me. I work at Ketenstandard, which is basically a sort of counterpart as CRB is in Switzerland. So we manage the ET classification, STABI specification system, GLN for GS1 within the Netherlands, and a couple of other standards. What we try to do is, this might be a bit chaotic, but what I would like from you is to imagine that we're having drinks at the end of the day of the summit in 2026, and we can congratulate each other on what we have accomplished. What should we have accomplished by that time? What's your dream that the situation, the position of product room is within the buildingSMART community? What kind of topics should product room focus on? What we did is we gave you some post-its. I would suggest take two topics on a piece of paper. We're going to put them on there and see if we can get together and decide what are the topics that are in the box, so in scope, and perhaps there are topics that we feel with each other that are out of scope and maybe should be in another room, for instance.
Then we write it out loud, so we give 5-10 minutes, something like this, so that you can think about just like 1, 2, 3.
There's markers here for people who can write big, so we can read it from there. I'll just try to moderate. Just as an extra introduction, we did a session like this with the steering committee, and of course, we don't give you what we did with the steering committee because that would give biased input, but we will be able to verify if we're totally crazy as a steering committee or maybe not.
So we also take notes, or do we influence too much?
Take notes.
Well, you could.
If you don't think the input is enough, then you're free.
Oops.
Okay. Well, let's see what we can do with this. So I have a concept for referring external open build products, info from IOC. It comes from you, I think.
Can you say that again? Concept?
You're going down here.
So I can explain it?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
so concept for referencing external open bin product information from IFC. So the tendency has been for a while that we, let's say, project owners, they expect IFC models to be populated by a lot of data, including product information. What we should be looking at is how we can keep the product information, because it's kind of static, externally from the actual assembly model, the IFC model, which says what is bind together and having references. So you can, on demand, go and external find information from product manufacturers. So that's a concept.
Like linked data?
Some kind of reference. It could be a GUID reference to a GUID in an external object, whatever, or a product database, but a concept. I don't care what it is, if it's a string or GUID or a linked data or whatever, but we need a concept for that. That's because if we try to put everything into IFC files or one IFC file, I think we'll fail. That's basically that.
Yeah.
It's a library concept. Catalog or library concept.
Yes, but also it's not enough to just be able to. So there's some efforts in trying to have the possibility for manufacturers to provide the product information. Now I'm in the daily use of it. So rather than kind of converting that to native data, that could be one option. I would like to have an open standard that can be referenced from IFC models.
So I mean, in a way, in minimum, you have in a model, you have the manufacturer and the product number, and then you refer to data wherever it is.
That's one concept. Another concept could be something different. But the point is not to mix everything together. That's my.
I have a. What's that?
You have to read the comments because there is a comment from the online.
Yeah. It's
I
already.
just added them
Yeah.
here and you can see this question.
Okay. Yeah, they are it's already up here, so that's good. So when it comes to what the product room has done for this, because this is a modular thing, you don't want everything at the same place. Should this be something that we have a view on as a product room on how this should work and relate that to the rest of the buildingSMART community? Is that what
Yeah,
the role
so,
should be?
so this is not what we do alone as a product room, it's how we integrate with the technical room and all that.
Yeah,
How,
absolutely.
what is allowed and not allowed by IFCs. So as you know, the current IC part 21 file, there's a reference to line numbers. And we need to open up. There's concept for it in IFC, but it's currently not a part of the module definitions stuff like
So
that.
it's about having a view on how this should relate with the other standards
It
and
has
services from those.
Two components. One thing is to have kind of an open standard for product information. I think that's on its way. And the other one is how to reference that, how to use it
Yeah, so
as an open standard, not as a convert to the
so
native.
I put the reference up here. That's the main item to go with this one. I think that we have a solution for that. It's called from online, properties across classifications are linked. Could I match that up with what Björn just explained? Question to online.
We can't have him on audio here.
I'll just put it close to it. So I have a couple here that say something about compliance with global governance, guidance body for PSD, and this may be a little different. IP PSD adoption by sectoral representing organizations. That also has to do with governance, I think. Am I correct? Because I think Fred, yours is for compliance.
Yeah.
You put it up.
What I see in the world is that we have the NACE code for procurement, for example, which also has products like coal and wood and all type. It's an endless list. And if you don't comply with people that procure, then they don't see it.
So, is there something for the product room here to have a view on that? White paper, whatever could be the result. Also, as a sort of support for implementation, seamless implementation of the buildingSMART standards.
Yeah, and more commercial, it could help with tendering.
We're talking about the three parties, so you have manufacturer wholesaler on one hand, you have on the other hand design and contractor, but in between you have procurement.
The ones that pay,
And
the one that pays.
Yeah, so that's another party in the game, in a way.
So these are like tax codes and things like that. Like we have categories of materials, like our Canadian government has some stuff like that too.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a classification system in a way as well.
Yeah, but that's the simple output.
Yeah.
Is it the output or the input? Or is it both?
A system is always the output of a strategy. So
Yeah, output for yeah.
We can't even agree to write on paper in the same orientation.
Nice, all over the place, that's right.
Just quite straight now.
But that could be related to the adoption by, this is from you too, I think, but
what is that?
the IFBB's, the adoption,
Yeah.
yeah. Because that has to do with.
Yeah, with the sectoral organization, representative organizations.
So, but that's an implementing support issue. Or is that a governance structure issue?
You know, for example, I saw Schneider on the, and I know Schneider is represented heavily in the European Union.
Yeah.
So they do lobbying, they do their own thing.
Mhm.
They don't do necessarily represent buildingSMART International, but a lot of times you see they use that position for their own good. And with buildingSMART International, we should go for the broader
Common good.
common good. Yeah. So organizations where Schneider is member of adopt
So,
formally IFC or the product room or whatever, then we have a position.
Maybe to comment, we are very, so I'm from Schneider, but we are very active for sharing some topics, and yet we are pushing the whole BIM approach. But said that, in some areas, it's really buildingSMART with the name of buildingSMART could be active. And where for me it's complicated is that in some areas, the regulations are managed by other standardization bodies. And for me, it's something we have really to take care as the buildingSMART International Association to be sure that we have someone sometimes with representative on the right level of decision for the European rules, for example.
Yeah, I'm just saying this because I was at Cadence Standard once, and there they explained me that companies like yours, you make choices between BACnet, KNX, etc. But making a choice doesn't mean it's good for the end users.
Usually we make them through a standardization association.
Yeah, you influence.
Yeah, we are member and we influence. It's impossible to do it alone.
I know.
It is a power game, yes.
But
Yes. They want to sell product.
Sure.
But as you said, and it's probably also my comment, we are starting the sustainability energy management room, and most of the standardization of the product on the automation and the electrical area are made in other organizations. And so for me, it does not make any sense to rebuild all in buildingSMART. So for me, my need is how will we coordinate that? Because we have to reuse what it already exists.
Yeah.
Nobody will pass time to reuse the data in another format because they have been defined in another format. So how we manage these relations? So it's my small post-it with a lot of things saying that we have to connect with IC, E-Class, A-Team.
yeah, I put it up here, that one to combine with the reference and properties across class classification. I think that's in the same area.
Exactly. And,
So, and okay, I'm still thinking about these ones.
So if I'm right, I think it's a little bit about really addressing all the stakeholders. So what we already mentioned is also mentioned by our colleagues with the industry input, and it's even more. So it's really it's not about only about the design and construction. So it's about manufacturing, it's about engineering, it's about purchasing, It's about facility management and product data goes really all the way through.
The ecosystem.
Yeah.
Ecosystem, and
Yeah.
they have already standard regulation on this ecosystem.
Yeah.
We should adapt somewhere.
Wherever
So-
it is possible, we shouldn't, we must.
Yeah, and complement when needed.
And eventually also win one or the other for a change. Because, I would really say wherever it's possible, we must work with existing standard structure, whatever. And wherever it's not possible, we at least have to address it, to look for solutions.
And be open.
I want to switch to Hasso. This is your paper here, product room guidance body for BSD. Could that be lifted to, let's say, buildingSMART services?
I'm not sure yet. I think obviously we need something like this. The question for me is this: if I made exclamation mark and a question mark, the question for me is this room the home for such a body or not? Do you want to be the body for this? In principle, I would say ideally it would be a good environment for such a body. If you say no, we don't want to be this, then I think in buildingSMART we have to find an idea. If you say yes, we could imagine to be this body, then buildingSMART will start to discuss with this room how this can be elaborated. And I would say this as a general idea, what this guidance body has to be is, imagine you go to a government and you have to convince them to bring their content to BSD, or maybe to even not to develop their own dictionary, but to trust on BSD and use like BSD. What do you think what they need? Things like quality assurance, like that it's that not everybody just can change things, that they have an influence on the development, that if they need a function, that there's a process established how to develop functions, how to decide on functions, and so on and so on. To get an idea what this guidance body has to do is something similar, like if you look at software companies, where you have a product owner, you have Scrum people, you have a customer service, you have somebody who can train and explain things. I think something like this has to be established.
There's two remarks. So one is, I totally agree. As soon as the community of the product room says that it is important to have this governance and these processes, I think we have to care about it. If we have to implement it is another question, but we have to care about it. What I see, and that was a discussion since years, I have personally also with buildingSMART, because that's an operational task. Then you need an operation. You need people behind it, because that is work. That is real work to do. But however, if this is a request out of the community, then we have to care about implementing it wherever, with whomever it will be. And there, I totally agree.
I mean, there's also another aspect. If we have competing products in the market, and you go to one vendor and he says, no, I don't want to implement the function. And the other says, I implement it for you. Then you have competition, and then the other vendor who don't want probably starts thinking about maybe it's better to implement it.
Yeah.
If we have a thing like BSD, then arguably you don't have competition. So then you have to have a body which is influencing the development of BSD, which is similar like the development of the standards for the internet. So if you look into W3C, you see they have such bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that then touches, I think, provide, I think it's iOS framework for product information delivery specification.
Yes.
Yeah, that would fit with what you're just saying about.
Well, the idea behind that note was that IDS is to specify what information should be delivered for specific use cases. And I think it's important that also product information Because one thing is to provide everything that you can possibly provide about your products. Another thing is to provide specific parts of the product information for a specific purpose. I think it's important that we use the same concepts for describing deliveries of the models as the delivery of the external data, that is product information. So basically, ensure that this room is very aware of and involved in the IDS specification as it evolves forward.
So
It's
this-
also a little bit the idea, as we have heard today, don't know if you read the session, so that if we exchange information about projects with IFC, it would make sense to exchange also information about products like IFC.
Yes.
There's they use the concept of IDS if IDS is used also for the projects.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you want to specify product information for handover, so what should be delivered?
Yep.
Let's use IDS
Yep.
to describe exactly that.
Yep.
For example.
Yeah, but IDS could be, have a module that says product information should be this. That would support.
Again, it's just that we don't go a different way than the rest of the, let's say.
That's sensible, absolutely. Michel, process one.
Yes, that's my hobby.
Yeah, I know.
So that's really the idea to get out of the product, and so that we take ownership of this overall process and this overall ecosystem and stakeholders. So really from manufacturing, wholesale, engineering, procurement, and so on, and take ownership of this, and then we provide product information, product data through all the process, so that it's really a proper process and also a consistent way of dealing with product data. And then I totally agree, and using wherever and whatever is already there. So is it IDS or is it all the standards, for example, for procurement and so on, that we have to involve this and to address this. And my idea is really to start with this process map, because I still have the impression it's not yet clear. Also they learn new, yes, of course, also procurement has to be part of it. So we need to understand what are really the stakeholders, what are the processes where product information, product data goes really through. As a starting point, so for me it's a kind of a first step.
It has to do with stakeholders in the process, and it has to do with use cases. We can actually show that the process. Is that correct? I think most valuable use case, I don't know who put it up, but
That's the three of me.
Yeah.
So having a process map, and then look about the use case, and the most relevant, so the use cases that provide us really benefit. So we don't have to implement information delivery specification for use cases that do not really provide an increase of productivity. So really we have to make an analysis which are the use cases that really increase efficiency and productivity, and then go one step further with these use cases and then define really the information need for these use cases at the end of the day. And if there are other use cases that don't deliver a lot for efficiency increase, you can do them later or you leave them away.
So I have this one, PLM exchanges. That's new. Does that fit with the reference items in your view? What is PLM?
Yeah, help me.
Product lifecycle management.
Okay.
So
Lifecycle.
disclosure, I work for vendors and dealing with productization a long time. We've been doing product design, so and strong arm ways to design within the same platform. Obviously, we're talking about open exchanges. So how can we design the products and be able to?
Could this fit with the processes and the use cases so that you start even earlier, so in product design, product manufacturing, storage, and then procurement, logistics, and then perhaps maintenance, refurbishment, and so on and so forth, so that you integrate also these two processes.
Yeah.
A little bit also the Schindler case, where you even have a plan so in the building.
You say we should put them here, Michel?
Yeah, well, try to understand.
Well, I'm trying to understand too. So.
Okay. You put this
Yeah.
one up, this synchronized with sustainability, energy management room.
Yeah, so it's a new room. We intend to build a data model to support the electrical design from conceptual to detail, dismantle, and recyclability. So that means we arrive with a lot of needs on product data. And then that means we have to coordinate to build something that is consistent with that already exists. Because sometimes we are speaking exactly the same product that already exists in the mostly in the construction view. So I don't know how we can work on that, but clearly I think we have here some work to do together.
Yeah, but
Yes.
so this is a inside buildingSMART stakeholder desk.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have the last grouping here, assemblies and sub-assemblies of products, creating understanding of what products are. I think that's an interesting one. And enable assembly built out of multiple products, which is basically connected to this one. But we'll put up the creating understanding of what products are.
That was mine. So when we're talking about products, I think we have to define what exactly are we meaning about products. Is supporting material which is needed to create the building, what will be gone after it's built. It's that the product is some machinery used to construct something. Is that a product? And also the categories of products. So is it an assembly or is a system? Is it also a product? Is a raw material also a product? Because that goes then into sustainability. Because if you have a material which you say, okay, this is absolutely sustainable, but the raw materials used to create that product could be not sustainable. So how should we handle those kind of things as well?
And then the building itself is also a product.
Yeah.
It's a horrible one, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
So to start to think about what is a product, what are we talking about?
That would be, I think, a very good one for product room too, because.
But can we do that until 2026? Is that too short time?
Yeah, I know you've been around for a while.
Time will be an issue.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this one aside, and we have to take a picture of it. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Picture. Because
So we're also interested, of course, is the question: what is it not? Perhaps it's easy to start there. So to talk about products.
In the regulatory room, Nick said a product is anything you can kick.
Yeah.
well,
Like,
Is there also the option that you have an immaterial product? Don't know.
Does it have to be physical?
Yeah.
If you're gonna kick it.
Yeah, but
Everything you can
products
sell
can
is a
be.
product.
so
Software.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Is
software,
service?
but.
Is a service a product?
No.
But for me,
Do we
Yes,
have
services.
services like
your
products?
command product will be virtual at the beginning of
There's a definition.
The product
Yeah.
is not real.
Because if I look at specifications, then you
What we
No,
do
it's
is
all the
generate
ISO
design,
definition for what a product
so
is.
we encapsulate
that should
different
probably
people's
be
know-how
starting
into
Yeah.
what we call a template of some sort. That can be a product, because that can be purchased to develop parts of the building automatically. So we actually have a product that's the virtual thing that would build, say, a wall. So you want to make a wall, but it needs to be able to adapt to it. So that template that can adapt to different situations can be a product.
Yeah, but you're right in the fact that something can be a concept instead of a real product.
So we got an explanation of the input you gave, and there's also already a first category collection there. Now it's the question, of course, what do we feel after all this input should be in focus of the product room, and what should be have out of focus or out of focus? I think I just put two up here to say, okay, these ones are good things to work on as a product group, process map, and an understanding of what products are. And we can probably put, I think the reference part, if you agree with me, that would be an item that we, as a product group, should think about. Of course, everything is in relation to the rest of the community, in my opinion. So these are things that we can say something about. So I would like to put that up here, put an extra tape on there to make sure that it will stick. But then we get to the question marks. So this is a question mark, I think, also, if we are the body that, so I'll put it right halfway, and we can work from there. That's what we call on seesaw, so it could go either way. The thing is that when it comes to stakeholders, part of it will be addressed in a process map, but I'm not sure if the product room is the one to work with compliance with global governance, or if that's a buildingSMART international management thing. So I would put this one outside. I see the adoption is, I think, not something for the product room.
I think it should be, the product room should coordinate those topics on a higher level, but the content or the creation of those guidelines should be the responsibility from other rooms.
So we give input, advice,
Yeah,
but we don't decide on policy.
that's example. Yeah.
So then I'll put the word advice on here. And fix that one inside the box. These ones to go with it. You see, I'm being naughty because I've already put some themes up there, which are the important items. So we can easily go from there and see what kind of actions we can get from there. So governance is something that's up here, that also partly in, partly out. Use cases. What do you guys think? Should this be inside or outside the box?
Inside.
I have an answer for myself, but
Depends on the use case.
I didn't know if the use case is in the box or
Depends on the use case, because we have.
If it's inside, we define the use
we
cases.
define the use cases that are inside the box.
So we need to define the box.
No, but use cases are, I think, proving what to do with what basically your summary said about that kind of data transfer. Use cases can help, but we have to determine with every use case. That would be a good thing for workshop too, to see can we define a couple of use cases that we could work on, and those have to fit in the box.
What is the relationship with use case management?
At this moment, nothing.
None.
But this could be the front portal of use case management, where you say we have use cases we can bring in, and then use case management should take them further.
What is for me important there, that will be out of the box. So use case management should standardize the process and the way how you define use cases. We define our use cases. So I'm not also responsible for the use case management itself. And for me, it would be interesting. So that's the reason that I like the process map, because in the process map, we can really make a kind of an enterprise architecture analysis. So where is the beef? So where are really the use cases to bring us forward? So, example, if you say, well, it is procurement, then we have to define the use case for procurement. if you say, well, procurement, you don't have a lot of efficiency gain. If you do something, then leave it away. And you don't have to define the use case for later on.
Your note there about governance, what type of governance are you talking about?
Well, discussing this with Russell, also what came up with use case management is who is going to do what is the mandate that they have
For the room.
for the room.
Okay.
So we can, because I can think of a couple of things that you want to do, but there's some governance in place that so you have to go through the motions.
So when I write PLM exchange, that's what we usually call a governance within a design.
Okay. Yeah. This is more organizational governance. Yeah. All right, a couple of left. Ideas framework and coordinating room-specific product topics. Put neutral equal on there, but maybe that doesn't fit right. Is this working together with the other rooms? Of course, which is for every topic. I would feel this fits in.
It wouldn't be good if you wouldn't like to coordinate rooms, product-specific topics.
No, that's correct. So please stay up there. And this is, I think, assemblies, sub-assemblies of products and enable assembly build out multiple products to track chain of custody for each. I'm not sure if this is something that has to be executed within the product room. Probably this has to be technically fitted into, let's say, IFC BSDD, but we can have a view on how it could work. Coming from, for instance, I was discussing, I don't know, with the item classification, that you have EC classes and you have modeling classes, and there's need for something in between, like combined classes, that you don't have all the single products, but actually can combine it to a total system. But do we have to have a view as product group on this? My question.
When I say like assemblies and sub-assemblies, what we're looking at in productization is the modularity and not modular building, but actually how you work together. And it does fit under sort of what is a product. So, and it's how to, and when you've got modular products, then you might not have an exact product, so you can fill in pieces of products. Like assemblies, so you're putting together multiple products, so then how do you develop a BOM and build material from that, and how exact is it, and then we went over to procurement, so then it comes out to the part of the procurement as well.
Maybe also, because Roger is also in the room, see, I could translate this to create a, well, I would almost say understandable view on the ISO standards that talk about this, like the 12006 series says something about assemblies or components and systems, but it's not clear for how to implement that or say it in real world language.
It's probably going to come out in the use cases anyway. So.
Yeah, then it would fit in definitions or use cases. Both, I would say this might be an interesting topic for a white paper on how does it actually work.
Yeah, those go together. So what is a product?
Yeah.
So sample products. So take an example. So if you're an architect and you say, okay, so I want to have the wall-hanged toilet. So when it comes to the building on the construction side, we first put the system into the wall, and then a month later we put on the porcelain stuff, the action toilet. So when is this split into two products? Is it two products? Is it one product? Is it assembly? Is it the system itself? And there's also, of course, drainage and there's, you know, water, etc. So again, this example, how is the workflow here? Is it a toilet, or is it more than a toilet, or is it two products? Is it three products? What is it?
That's something that could be answered with a process map, because when we start creating the process map and when we define what information are available on what point in the value chain or in the process, then we're going to be able to answer these product-related questions, because when we're in the beginning and we're just talking about some concept, that maybe the product is the toilet itself or the entire assembly. But once you go further to the process where you have to specify more than the toilet seat itself, becomes maybe the product. And that could be answered with the process map.
Yeah, no, just an example. It's simple, but
But it has to do with definitions. There was a large discussion at the start of PSD, like okay, you have the smallest component, your molecule or your atom, and you go up to the biggest, which is the sun, and everything in between. It makes it a bit, well, you're not boiling the ocean, you're boiling the universe then. But, this is, but it is something that we can give input to and see if we can get a buildingSMART view on how that works. So we are on the same page together, and we can distribute that, and that's as a buildingSMART view on how that works. But I agree that would be perfect to mix up with the process.
yeah, I think the thing is you cannot discuss product without discussion also process. So
No, I agree.
But it's also important to address in this discussion, because I think in building construction, especially our architects also think. Usually, you start probably with an assembly or with a system, because you don't have the details. So also you start with a wall, and not with bricks and plasterboards. And I think that is important, and also in this process thinking, that quite often you start very generic and you go then more and more specific until you have the products or even components of single products at the end of the day. But you don't want to have this trap right at the beginning, because it's too complex to come handle, and a lot of it you don't know it.
What I'm going to do now is I'm taking this also and put it in the box, because I think that this is an example of what our governance role as a product group can be. Because we have to determine what our governance role could be in various areas, which I think also comes out of the process map, what we can do with that. And then we can also determine whether the specific one is in scope. I think people here know what they're talking about because everything is in the box. They know
How much does this match with the steering board?
That's a good question, and I don't know from the top of my head.
Okay.
I've been here for a week now, so there's too much information. We could actually.
We need to back out. Huh?
Yeah, I need an external hard drive. Put my head in the cloud. So basically, as a last part, because we only have about a quarter of an hour left, time flies. I put these theme items on there, but am I correct about those? I'm talking about definitions / explanations. Is that correct? Michel, looking at everybody. Because it covers the items that we put under there. Okay, reference data, which is more even the view on how to connect data. There's a couple of items under there, but I think that pretty much covers it. That not everything on one place, but distributed, federated, whatever technology or infrastructure is coming along with that. And a view on how that works. So reference data is you need a black one.
Yeah. Don't need a black one.
This one.
I like that.
Eine vertellen wat net.
So what was the second
Second one is referencing data. And I'm not sure if that's the final title, but needs some explanation. And the third one should be the role in governance structure. I mean, we have a steering committee from the product room, which is part of the governance structure, but it's not clear what our mandate is, for instance, on when it comes to advisement on buildingSMART services. So it's a question mark also what to do with it.
Its governance, so what one part was concrete BSDD.
Concrete example is BSDD, but it could be other services. Could be a combination with other rooms. Let's say that product room and technical room steering committee have a mandate on certain topics, and the railway and airport on other topics. But that should be clarified, and I would like to clarify it for ourselves before somebody else starts doing it. Take your fate in your own hands.
And responsibilities as well.
No responsibilities. It's an open community.
A lot of power, but no responsibility.
Yeah, you have important people. They are CEO, and you have very important people, and they're non-CEO. So they get into a meeting, but they never get any executive actions to do. Okay. Platform. I've called it exchange here. So data exchange comes close to referencing data, but this also has to do with multi definition, IDS, coordination with other group topics. So it's all about what kind of information, what place and time, what role. So I put exchange there. And I would say, like to say that number 4 probably is the number 0, but there's no room above, is the process map. That's my idea now, is that the process map will actually clarify what our stakeholders are. So I would say stakeholders is a sub-item of the process map. How to advise stakeholders on what to do when it comes to what we as a product will provide, coming from the process map. And probably use cases will fit under there too. So we have 5 main topics to start our next workshop with.
Does everybody find himself with these topics in summary? Or is something totally different? Say, well, I can't find it here again.
I always wonder whether it has become too abstract.
Yeah.
So if there's enough, meat.
Yeah.
Not yet, I would expect. So that would be probably
just a question.
The next workshop.
The thing is that the individual cars are more detailed. We have a couple of steering committees at Kate Standard, and you see a difference in a very abstract to a very detailed set of themes. So we have to level it out a little bit. But what we're going to do after the break, well, like Roger Waters said, he was pointing behind me. After the break, we're going to do that, and he actually pointed at the moon. So he was going to play Dark Side of the Moon. But after the break, what we're going to do is set up a timeline with what are going to be the deliverables over the next couple of years. If you want to be able to say in 2026, okay, on these topics we have created actually something. So probably all the time we'll go to definition of what a product is, and then we have some time left for other things.
Will the definition of what a product is help us know where the edges of the process map lie? Is it from I have an idea about creating a product as an inventor all the way till it was put in a building and the building was demolished and put in a landfill? Is that the process edges?
I think when we start defining the products, we will automatically talk about different kind of products. And once we do that, we're also going to talk about different requirements for different categories of products, which will help us then also coordinate with other rooms. Because once we get an understanding what the product is and how we can differentiate different products, then it becomes easier to coordinate. Different.
As you were saying, a product that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Physically, is that? Because I think that's actually really powerful. If you can, and you say, well, I've got this idea for this product, and what are the regulatory requirements that would be imposed on it, the expectations and performance of it acting in a real building?
For example, the European Union is defining now the new laws about product clarification and declaration. So what they are saying now is that a construction product is something what has a safety feature or a hygienic feature, or there's some 2 specifications, and it has to remain in the building. So once we will be able to define such a group set of information for a product, we also could start linking governance information to it.
I already see some gaps in that definition.
Great.
I see some gaps in that definition from the EU, right? That you might have to buy blowing agent that's a product that I need to blow something, but it just goes in the air. It doesn't remain in the final spray foam. Then
But the EU says it's a construction product, but the building seems to have more products than just construction. So,
well, the discussion shows that it's probably worthwhile to care about. So in the second workshop, we would like to go a little bit further on, put it on the roadmap, and then also talk about deliverables, so that then we get them also again a little bit more precise. So what should be output? So what do we want to provide afterwards?
I hope to have, as a result of the second part of the workshop, that we know what we have to do, or that we know what we have to discuss with buildingSMART management board of how we fill this in.
These
And
are the direction,
direction, and possibly deliverables will become projects, and then we have to do activity proposals, etc., etc. But then we know what to focus on.
The question, who will stay for the second part of the workshop and who has to leave? So you all stay or you leave?
I leave.
Leave.
we're raising our hands for people waiting.
Okay.
Well,
It can be interesting, of course, yeah. Then with another group trying to go in more detail, perhaps we make a loop back, it's okay. So we are looking for a direction, we are not looking for final answers, of course. So really to look where, what could be the position, the direction we go. So that's fair enough and good enough. For me, it's also important to call to action. So because that should end then in activity proposals and hopefully in projects. So we will be dependent and also happy to have you and colleagues of you and also stay in contact with us if you start to really implement one of the other parts of this. So please really stay tuned. If it's here, if it's in direct contact, if it's in Rome in March, wherever, where we really try to go more complete.
I have one question for people in the room, just an evaluation question. What do you feel about the setup? Did we do something useful in this hour?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And, we can proceed on that. It's always difficult. Let's go for coffee.
Thank you. So once again, it's from the other direction. Thank you.
Can I make a statement?
Yeah, sure.